Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Lasher, Vice President of Fraud and Financial Crimes Portfolio Marketing at FICO, and welcome to the Decision Hero video series where we profile thought leaders in enterprise technology. Here with me today is Matt Cox. Matt's the Vice President of Fraud and Financial Crimes for the EMEA region of FICO. And today he's here to share with us industry trends and best practices to fight scams, a particularly nasty form of fraud that impacts a lot of real people. Welcome, Matt.
Hey Liz, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So let's start today with asking you to give us a brief overview of what scams are. How do you define them? What are some of the ones you see? What are some of the new kinds and prevalent kinds that you're seeing during this pandemic?
Sure. A scam in its most simplest sense, let's say, is where a criminal tricks someone to do something which they probably wouldn't do if they knew what the outcome was going to be. They come in different shapes and sizes. Some more sophisticated than others. Just some examples. In the UK, they generally refer to it as APP or authorized push payment fraud. But other places, will refer to them very detailed in terms of things like investment scams. Yeah, and investment scams right now are really prevalent because with low interest rates, you see consumers wanting to find places to put their money, and scammers are taking advantage of that and advertising things with high return when in fact there's probably nothing at the end of the rainbow, let's say. The other one I would talk about is purchase scams, and they've been there for a while, but this year particularly with the COVID-19, people panicked a bit and felt they needed to buy protective equipment. There was quite a few scams with things like PPE, and we're seeing things like vaccinations now coming into play. Now that's a thing that's real and starting to be rolled out globally. Romance scams is another one. Impersonation scams, where a criminal pretends to be someone from the bank or a police officer and dupes them into sending their money somewhere. And for right now, some emerging threats, I would say delivery scam seems to be a rising threat around this big surge in e-commerce where people are staying home, some in lockdown, and text messages are being used to fish information by saying, we attempted to deliver a parcel, please click this link, give us your information, and we'll redirect it. But actually, there was no parcel. And employment scams, one to definitely keep an eye out on. While the economic, impacts where people are losing their jobs, people will want to find new employment, and scammers, let's say, are exploiting that by putting fake ads out there and asking for a fee for the privilege of things like credit checks, criminal checks, and being part of the process, which is a concern to say the least.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you tell me what is the size of the scam problem then compared to other types of fraud?
Yeah, if we look at the UK to start with, last year's reported losses, and to be honest, the UK is pretty good at reporting now. As an industry, it was about £500 million in terms of losses last year, and then I think from memory it's something like £2 billion worth of attempted scams. But if you compare that to something like card fraud, e-commerce, which we seem to talk about a lot, e-commerce, CMP, actually in the UK, I think that last year was something like 470 million. So pretty neck and neck. I definitely think that in 2020, when the numbers come out next year, I definitely think that scams could be the leading fraud type. And why is it so attractive? Because the average loss of a scam or opportunity, if you're the scammer, versus the card fraud is 10 times greater, right? So it only takes 10% more victims on a scam to really blow up the problem compared to card fraud. So really interesting to see those statistics in the UK.
Is that something similar you're seeing to other regions elsewhere within Europe or the Americas or Asia Pac?
Yeah, if we take a bit of a quick world tour, we start with the West, and we look at the US. So reporting per country or region is actually very inconsistent. But what we can see in terms of reports is the US for impersonation scams, so a subset, of the scams out there was around 400 million US dollars. Pretty big. Now, if you take that 400 US million dollars, right, and you apply that as a distribution or a ratio of what the UK sees total, the losses in the US could be anything between 2 to 3 billion US dollars per year for scams in itself. Now, if we go to Europe, where the reported scam losses are somewhere like 24 billion, and we looked at it per person within, in terms of population, the US has 330 million people. Europe has 450 million people. Now, if we looked at per person, the US losses could be anything up to 15 billion US dollars. But again, we must get better at reporting so we can really size the problem. But I think that's improving. Canada, as an example, they've started to report. There's some interesting numbers there. I can only see a lag of about 2 years, so I'm not sure how the situation is this year. But I do know everyone's talking about it. I know there's victims out there, and interestingly, I really like what the Canadian government's done with an initiative called Slam the Scam, which I think is really catchy. Similar to the UK that did a campaign called Take 5. Where all the banks kind of collaborated and said, take 5 to think before you do, a potential scam transaction. Lastly, let's talk about Australia. So we've gone right from the west to the east, and there's definitely some really good initiatives over there around collaboration between banks. The regulators starting to get involved now. I saw reported losses last year of around 630 Australian dollars in millions, that is. And if we compare that to the UK in terms of population size, it's actually greater. So where the UK think they've got a really big problem and they're really addressing it, a fantastic set of results this year and last year, what they've achieved, is that there's so many other countries that's probably got an even bigger problem.
Wow. I mean, this is a very big business, it seems, for criminals. And you mentioned a couple of government initiatives. Can you tell me a little bit more about what regulators are doing about the scam problem?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the UK, and actually, I'd say that the regulators, they're probably sitting in one of three, buckets, let's say. And so you've got, some that are heavily involved, some that are just getting started, and some that just haven't done anything yet. And so if I talk about the first one, let's say the UK's come a long way. You only have to look at the contingent reimbursement model to see how far they've come around collaboration as an industry and also around no blame. So, it doesn't help by blaming the customers and holding them liable on everything because you lose trust. And so collaboration is so important. So they've come a long way. I'd say probably Europe. I mentioned Australia. Some places in Asia, they're starting to get involved, the regulators. Still more work to do, but to be honest, this is the type of fraud that there'll always be something we can improve on. And then there's some that just haven't started yet. But I definitely think within 24 months, we'll see far more regulators getting involved in this challenge.
Absolutely. Matt, any other insights you'd like to share with us today?
I think the only thing I would say, Liz, is if you're a bank, a telco, or a retailer, and you've got a bunch of customers, they're vulnerable to these scams. And there's some things that you can do that can help protect customers. And collaboration is one I mentioned, around sharing information, working as one team. Take away the competitiveness of this. Typically, you see a lot of those barriers taken away when we tackle fraud. For customer education, try and help them understand what you as an organization would and wouldn't do, and how they can protect themselves. I guess the last thing I would say, if you're a consumer watching this, take a moment, do some research before making that payment. Make sure you're comfortable. Speak with your bank or your service provider, get their advice, and also going back to the employment fraud scam, just be careful out there right now because reputable companies typically won't ask you to pay a fee to come join their company. So be suspicious if you get asked to do that.
Really, really valuable advice. Thanks, Matt, and thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, Liz. Always a pleasure.
If you want to learn more from our fraud and financial crimes experts, please visit us at community.fico.com. Thanks for joining us.